What an excellent day for an exorcism.
This is Scotty and Andrew, and you're listening to Fun with Horror.
Hey, everybody, I'm Scotty.
And I'm Andrew.
And welcome to episode number 104 of Fun with Horror, the movie review podcast in which two long-distance best friends stay in touch by taking turns giving each other horror movies to watch and discuss.
And, of course, last week was me, last episode, and I chose The Exorcist, one of the most famous horror movies ever made that I hadn't seen, but we'll discuss that in a bit. Of course, The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, and starring Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Linda Blair, Lee J. Cobb, and Jason Miller. And of course, stick around to the end of this episode because we're going to hear what Scotty picks for our next movie. But without further ado, hey, buddy.
Oh, my God. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
This is going to be a heck of an episode, buddy.
I have one note.
Only one?
That's it. Yeah, just one.
I mean, I've got a note, but it's a long one. What's your note?
We should talk about the movie.
That's it?
Yeah, no, buddy, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding. I didn't just, come on. Sorry, man.
What's your one note? You had me going there for a second. I was like, wow, we're just getting to the movie. This is how bad he wants to talk about it.
I'm kidding.
Gosh. Oh my God.
Anyway, how you doing, bud?
Hey, I'm fine. But what's your note?
No, I really don't. I don't have one note. I was just joking because you said we have so much to talk about. And I said I just have one note, like one.
That's you didn't watch any movies?
Oh, that.
How have you been?
Oh, I've been good.
We are off to a great start.
Hey, you know what? This is what people want, man. They want us, the genuine us.
Yes.
You know? So I say I'm all about it. We're humans too, for anyone listening. We make mistakes.
One mistake per episode.
That's true. Dude, what have you been watching?
No, I asked you already.
All right, fine.
What'd you watch?
So I watched one that we had briefly talked about on an episode, which was Hell House LLC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I really enjoyed it. I had no expectations because I didn't really know anything about these movies or this movie. But yeah, really great little indie film, found footage. Yeah, very surprising with how good they did with this movie. So definitely recommend it. I had a lot of fun with it.
You've got 1 week to watch the rest of the Hell House LLC movies, which I think is 2 or 3. And then there's a new one at the end of the month.
I did start the second one.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know what all to say about that.
Were you not enjoying it?
I wasn't. Okay. It felt a little more, because I know the first one felt like kind of more independent. This one I felt more scripted a little bit, which I went, the whole fun of the first one is that it didn't feel this way. It felt kind of Blair Witch Project-y, where it felt real, it kind of felt realistic. And there, right at the beginning, there's just a couple lines, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds scripted," So I don't know. I'll try it again at some point.
You know what?
What?
It's a free country, and you can stop after Hell House LLC 1.
That's true, but I am curious where this story goes. So I might bite the bullet. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Same here.
Yeah.
But now I'm nervous.
Why?
Man, I've watched so many movies.
Yay, tell me.
Well, first of all, on Friday the 13th, I watched Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Yeah.
And all I could think about is you and JD talking about you going, die. Tell me about that.
I think it was because it's Corey Feldman in that. I don't know. For some reason, I think I just would always quote that movie, that scene in particular. I won't say exactly where it's at because it might ruin some things. But yeah, I would quote that.
Die.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. But he knew what it was from. There's a few movies like I would say, you know, I shot him 6 times from Halloween 2. And
I was going to say that's not Friday the 13th.
No, there's just random little quotes, man, that just made us chuckle because they were just so silly lines, fun lines.
I shot him 6 times. What else did I watch? Man, I watched The Wailing, which is a Korean film that my friend Michael kept actually requesting that you and I watch. In fact, one time I was like, hey, buddy, do you think you would be able to watch a 3-hour movie or a 2.5-hour movie? And you were like, yeah, but then I picked something else. So
yeah, okay.
But The Wailing is a very dark Korean horror film. It's on Prime, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, I watched that movie, Totally Killer. I think you watched that too.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. Oh, man.
I don't think we've talked about that one on the podcast.
No, not on the podcast, but yeah, we watched it too.
That's a really, really fun movie.
Really fun.
I watched Pet Sematary Bloodlines.
So real quick, before you say anything, I thought for some reason that Pet Sematary Bloodlines was a prequel TV series. I did not realize it was a movie.
Just a movie, pal.
I didn't know that. For some reason, I was like, oh, it's a prequel series. Cool.
And it's a prequel only to the, I think, 2019 remake, whatever year the remake came out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a prequel to that story, not the original 80s movie.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm not going to say too much. I've said it on Twitter and Facebook, but, we might actually do that movie in the future. So
it's possible.
Maybe with our friend Stanley.
Ah, that'd be fun.
Dark Harvest.
Oh, I watched it.
Oh, good. So, again, I don't know. We might do this movie, but for everybody out there, Andrew chose Dark Harvest as one of his most anticipated films of 2022. And then he chose it again as one of his most anticipated films of 2023 because it never came out in 2022. So it came out, but you watched it.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. What? I don't know what all we can, like, what do we say?
All I'm going to say is that when I was deciding what movie to pick for our next episode, for our Halloween episode, it was either Dark Harvest or something else. And after watching Dark Harvest, I thought, no, let's do something else for Halloween.
All right. Fair.
What else did I see? Oh, I rewatched the Halloween David Gordon Green trilogy.
Oh, nice. And what were your thoughts this time?
I give Halloween 2018 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
I give Halloween Kills, I think I gave it 4 stars or 3.5 or 4. 4, I think. Because I actually like it more. Well, that's where it ends, pal, because I give Halloween Ends 4.5 stars.
Oh, man. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that you enjoyed it more than I did.
And I loved it just as much this time. I think it's a masterpiece of a movie.
Wow. I want to revisit this. We should do a revisit of Halloween Kills.
That would be great because honestly, the thing that I really paid attention to this time was the whole undertones of trauma and people going through trauma. And Laurie facing her trauma in the first movie, kind of passing it on to her children and granddaughter and daughter. And then Halloween Kills was about Haddonfield's trauma, more or less.
Okay.
But then Halloween Ends is still about everybody's trauma, but more specifically, I felt like it was about how a town can be turned into a monster itself and certain people in the town.
Right.
But it still had Michael Myers in it. So, I mean, I don't know. I love that movie. I think it's a great story. So
fair. I actually just read recently that the novelization of that book has a very different ending. I read what the ending was, and it was very different.
I've been thinking about reading it. So
okay. I won't say anything else.
And real quick, just to go through these other movies, I watched Haunted Mansion, which I thought was it's a little bit long in my opinion, but very good and very fun to watch, especially if you're a fan of the Disney ride.
Which you are.
I watched an old 1979 movie called Nightwing about killer vampire bats, which I loved as a kid. And I finally rewatched. The nostalgia was fun. The movie is a little bit interesting.
Okay.
I watched Wes Craven's Shocker.
I've never seen Shocker. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I don't want to scare you away from it. I think you should watch it, buddy. I do.
Oh, geez. Okay.
But it didn't age well for me. But finally, last night, I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, because I want to rewatch the remake, but I did not remember the beginning at all, even though I knew I had seen it. And holy crap, that movie has to be underrated. That was a good movie.
Yeah. I'm trying to, I know we recently watched, I want to say, not, and I really like, it's, oh man, the main, if I'm remembering the right one, I want to make sure it's the one with Matt something. He's a kind of a famous actor. He did like a TNT show or something like that, like Suits or something, but it's kind of a big deal now. I think it's him as the main character.
Think maybe. I just know it's Jordana Brewster is the main girl.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
She's the final girl, I guess you could say.
Right.
Spoilers. But yeah, I thought it was a much better movie than I remembered it. And I think we should talk about The Exorcist now.
You really don't want me to play, huh?
No, I do. Captain Howdy said no.
Captain who?
Captain Howdy.
Who's Captain Howdy?
You know, I make the questions and he does the answers.
Okay, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Like I said earlier, I think this is going to be quite an episode. And just for everybody out there, I mean, you can see the running time, but we might go a little bit longer on this one because I think we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
This is Andrew's first time watching The Exorcist.
That's right, everybody.
And if it's your first time too and you haven't seen it, just be warned that Andrew and I are going to spoil The Exorcist. It's an old movie. It's a 1973. But as we always say, if somebody hasn't seen a movie, no matter how old it is, it can be spoiled for them. Right, buddy?
That's absolutely true.
So if you don't want Exorcist spoiled, you haven't seen it for some weird reason, like Andrew, then there you go. But here we go. Andrew.
Oh, Lord. Yes.
I'm not even going to joke about having Pazuzu the demon outside your house.
Don't.
You have 3 minutes, my friend.
All right.
3 minutes to recap The Exorcist.
Oof.
All 2 hours and 7 minutes of it.
Oh,
so
Lord. I'm going to do a real simplification of this one. So here we go.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
All right. So the story of The Exorcist has sort of two stories going on at the same time. There's Chris MacNeil and her daughter, Regan. And then there's also the story of Father Karras. Hopefully I'm saying that right if I remember. And Father Marin. And Chris MacNeil is an actress. She's very famous. They're in England. Is that where this movie's? No, where are they at?
No, not at all. They're in Georgetown, Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah, they are in D.C. I don't know why I said England. Cut that. No, don't. They're in D.C.
The Exorcist takes place in South Korea.
I don't know why I thought England. Boy, this is a good episode, man. Anywho, so she's an actress. They're on location, if you will, in D.C., and some things start happening. Regan starts acting a little differently. She goes to the doctor, really starts acting out, and then some strange things start happening at their house. The other story, on the other hand, is about Father Karras, who's trying to help his ailing mother. There we go. Who's very sick. Eventually, the two of these stories collide because Chris is worried about her daughter. They go see the doctor, and the doctor's like, we cannot figure out what's wrong with her. Maybe she needs an exorcism. And so, again, these stories collide. At this point, they need a higher-up priest to help out with this exorcist. So they get Father Marin, who's at the beginning of the movie. We see him just briefly in Iraq, I believe. Once these two meet up, we finally see that Regan is full-on possessed by Pazuzu, if that's how I say his name. She's crazy looking. Her head is spinning around, as probably many of you have seen if you haven't seen this movie, at least those clips. Head is spinning around, beds are moving, everything's wild and crazy. Eventually, the priests are there to try and exorcise her. Father Marin actually gets killed at one point. Karras goes in there, starts fighting with the demon or the devil, eventually says, come into me, takes takes the possession into his body and then jumps out the window to end his own life to get rid of that evil. Reagan is finally better or healed at least, and her mom eventually leave DC, hopefully happily ever after, but there's like 3 more movies, so who knows. But that's 5 more movies. Yikes. That's it in a nutshell. I know we're diving way deeper into this, so I'm giving you the basics on this, buddy, but there you go.
I kept having to remind myself that you had only seen this movie one time before doing that 3-minute recap, where everybody out there is going to be like, don't you know anything?
I know. It's all right. Hey, you know,
I've seen this movie 50 times.
Hey, that's part of our fun with horror family, though. We support each other and help each other.
Speaking of that, before we go any further, I just want to say that one of the reasons that I could not wait to talk to you about this movie after you watched it is because as friends, we respect each other greatly.
Very much so.
We're going to be very honest and open in this episode about our religious beliefs. So hopefully nobody's offended out there. You and I have 2 different religious beliefs. You are a Christian, and I would consider myself agnostic.
Right.
But we love each other.
You're my
no
family,
matter
buddy.
what. Yeah. We're like brothers.
We really are.
This is behind the scenes, but when we first started doing this podcast, we actually had an unspoken, unrecorded rule at the very beginning that if one of us chose a movie that the other person absolutely did not want to watch, the other person had the power of veto.
Right.
And
That's right.
we would just re-record our ending of each episode if that happened.
Right.
We quickly realized that no matter what the other person picked, we'd be down to watch it.
Right.
We had a conversation saying, I don't think you could pick any movie that I wouldn't be willing to sit and watch.
Right.
You did, however, have one movie that you said, I don't think I'm ever going to pick this movie. And that movie was what, buddy?
The Exorcist. Yeah.
Fast forward to 2023.
Yep. 2 years of this.
The Exorcist Believer has come out in theaters, and I know that piqued your interest.
It did, for sure.
Is that what made you finally decide to sit down and watch The Exorcist, or what else?
Yeah, I think that was it. And I had realized, we've watched some crazy things. And I was like, we've seen so much. Really, it wasn't even the movie itself. It was one scene, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point throughout this, that I just was like, I don't know if I like that. But fortunately, you told me where it was, so I just kind of bypassed it, and it wasn't a big deal. So I don't know. I think it was because the movie came out, and I think I just was like, I think I can watch this. I think it's fine. Plus, I do want to see the sequel, so And I think that's true, because I think when I saw the trailer, which I think if people, it won't spoil anything, but there's a character, I won't say who, I guess, that's from the original in this, that it shows right in the trailer. And I was like, well, gosh, if I want to see that, it'd be harder to understand the story, maybe, unless I watched the original. So
yeah,
there you go. I watched it.
Well, here we go, buddy. What did you think of The Exorcist?
Let me first say this. I wish I had seen this as well. I have good things, don't worry. But I really do wish that I had seen this at 15 or 16, kind of when I was starting to get into horror movies, because I feel like this would have been a really good one to watch at that time. That being said, this movie is really good. Period. I'm just going to say that. It's really good. And I'm going to phrase this the right way. I had heard so much about this movie. I mean, like we talked about the last episode, people regard this as the horror movie. I mean, a lot of people would say if you're going to watch a horror movie, it's The Exorcist. That's the one. So a little bit, I was expecting absolute anarchy, scary, horrifying, everything. And I didn't quite get all of what I was expecting, just because, again, it had been hyped up a little bit. Again, it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong. Please, no one hurt me, because I did like it. It's a good movie. I wish that I hadn't had so much told to me about this movie before, though, as well. because I've seen movies that even on this podcast, that I would say are much scarier than The Exorcist, in my personal opinion, and stuck with me more than The Exorcist. But again, it's a good movie, and I do want to talk about it.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
No, and that's always an interesting question that I have for people that wait a long time to see movies that are considered classics.
Right.
I would honestly say that I think The Exorcist, John Carpenter's The Thing, The Shining, Halloween, these are like the pinnacle of horror movies in popular opinion, I guess.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
I was very happy myself to rewatch The Exorcist. We watched the director's cut, which is the version you've never seen, that came out in around 2000 something.
Mm-hmm.
But we watched that one. So Andrew has not seen the original theatrical.
Right.
I didn't watch the theatrical. I only watched the version you've never seen, the director's cut. It's crazy, some of the scenes that were cut out of the original theatrical, but we'll get to that. I do think that this is one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Nice. Yeah, dude.
I wouldn't say this movie scares me.
Fair.
I've often said that the movie scares me more in the first hour of the movie, when it's more nebulous what is happening. It's more left to the imagination.
Right.
And then the second half of the movie gets more into crazy special effects, which are amazing.
Wonderful. Yep.
1973 movie, and they still look incredible.
Agreed. Absolutely. That's one of my highlights for sure.
Yeah. But I can now say that watching it this past week or two, the second half of the movie definitely affected me more than it used to.
Really? Okay.
I just got way into the characters and into the actual story way more than I ever had before. Before, it was like just a crazy horror movie about a girl that gets possessed by a demon.
Right.
Now I got really deep into the relationship between Father Karras and Chris McNeil and Father Marin, and what they were bringing into this battle with the demon Pazuzu.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I'm excited to talk, dude. I'm going to talk about this.
Obviously, quick shout out to William Friedkin, who recently passed away. This is kind of a timely... I know you were probably always going to pick this for October and Halloween time.
Yeah.
But then, he passed away pretty recently.
Mm-hmm.
And this is... He definitely left a mark on the world. And rest in peace.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, where do we even begin?
I know, right?
Let's just start at the beginning of the movie.
Right. Okay, let's do it, man.
What'd you think about the beginning, the opening? Father Marin in Iraq.
in Iraq. I thought it was interesting. So real quick, and I told you this story, but I think people will enjoy this, because I watched this with my wife, who had seen The Exorcist before. But right as we kind of started it, it's just starting, and she said something about, I don't remember what, but I was like, the way it looked, or I don't know. And I just said, yeah, well, this is, it's from the 70s. She goes, wait, what? She's like, we're not watching the new one? I go, no, we're watching the old one first before we watch the new one. But like you had talked about, I mean, maybe it just goes to show how nice the kind of re-release looks, because she assumed it was the new one, which is really cool. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, they just completely remastered it. William Friedkin was in the session. He eyes on, and I watched it in 4K on my TV, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I watched it 3 times, like I do. I watched it once for enjoyment, second time for notes, and a third time with William Friedkin's commentary.
Nice.
Every single time I'm watching the picture going, geez, this is so clear and crisp and beautiful.
That's awesome.
They brought out colors that had never been brought out of the picture before. It's just incredible.
It's cool that they can do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The opening scene was interesting. I liked it, but I was not sure what the heck was going on, because it kind of ends, because he's there, with the archaeologists, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of walks up to that statue. Well, they find the trinket, and then he just like walks up to that like devil statue. And I was like, what is happening right now? And then if I remember right, does it cut from there
Yeah, and it goes straight to Georgetown.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't get it, I guess, like what was up with him just with that statue. And I still am, help me out, because I still am not 100% sure what that was about.
Well, it's the interesting thing is that people have had weird theories about that opening. I've heard people say that Pazuzu is released in that opening. When they dig that little statue figurine out,
right?
People think that Pazuzu was released from captivity or something. That's not true at all.
Oh.
Basically, it's Father Merrin who has done exorcisms in the past. He has faced off against Pazuzu in the past.
Right.
He finds this figurine, and then he goes to the statue, and basically the final shot, he's just having a realization that he's going to have to face Pazuzu again in the near future. It's just a feeling he gets. It's a premonition. And that's what that final shot is. It's just a simple shot of good versus evil.
Right.
Pazuzu obviously being the good.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
But I do like that shot, and I get that, because that's a famous shot in movies, comics, where you do have the good on one side and the bad facing each other. So I get that, and I like that. That's good. Okay. Makes sense.
And that gets into, actually, because I know we love to talk about the overall metaphors of movies.
Of course.
But that's something that Friedkin actually said about the movie. He says that the story is consciously a parallel of Christianity, which is a constant struggle of good versus evil. That's how Friedkin views Christianity.
Okay.
And he said the film is about the constant struggle within all of us of good versus evil. More specifically, the struggle not to do harm to others.
Okay.
Because basically, when we give in to causing others harm,
right,
we give in to the demons. We give in to evil.
Right. The temptation.
And that's what the entire movie was about for Friedkin. And it is. It's very interesting. Obviously, we shouldn't go much further without saying that this is based on a novel by William Peter Blatty. William Peter Blatty also wrote the screenplay to the movie and was very involved from beginning to end in the making of the film.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Look at you.
And I know you were talking earlier and giving me little warm fuzzies about how much research I do for some of our movies.
Yes.
I went into the deep end this week. At the beginning of the week, Monday, I thought I am going to try and read the book before we record.
Oh my gosh, Scotty.
It's not a long book. It's like 300 pages. It's not a huge book. But at the same time, I purchased the book, and Monday night I was reading it, and I got a good 50 pages in. And let me tell you something, buddy.
Yeah.
I did not finish that book this week because it's not an easy book to read at night with the lights out.
That's fair. Who was it? I think it was it might have been my mom or dad. One of them was telling me, this was years ago, that they remember reading it for high school, or not for high school, but in high school, and having to, like, at night, and having to put it down. They couldn't do it. They just had to put it down. Yeah,
the book is creepier than the movie for sure.
Wow.
Because even having the movie in my mind as I'm reading the book, there's just certain embellishments that are, of course, in the book, like all books.
Right.
That do lend to the imagination. And I read on my iPad, ebooks. I read that so that I can read in the dark at night and let my eyes get tired and go to sleep, whatever. And that first night I was sitting there in my bedroom, and I just, honestly, I had my light on still for a little while I was reading. And even that, looking at my bedroom door, seeing the darkness coming from my living room, I just got a little creeped out, and I had to go back to the other book I'm reading, which is not horror at all.
I love it, though. That's amazing.
I was able to get about 210 pages into it, though. I got pretty far.
Good gravy, man. Good work.
I got right to the part where Father Karras has his first meeting with Reagan.
Okay. How just from what you read compared to the movie, is it? I know it's the same writer, but did it follow it pretty well from what you've seen?
Very well.
Or read? Okay.
Very well.
Good.
Like the dialogue, most of the dialogue is taken straight from the book.
Wow. Okay.
There's just some added dialogue and stuff in the book that obviously you don't have time for in the movie.
Right.
And that brings up another question. Everything I was saying about how Friedkin views the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear what you think about the end of the movie. We talked about the beginning.
Right.
Now let's jump all the way to the end.
That's how we do it on Fun with Horror.
And then we'll do stuff in the middle. But at the end, after Father Merrin dies,
right,
Father Karras, obviously he takes Pazuzu into himself,
right,
and then goes out the window and dies at the bottom of the steps.
Right.
How did you view that?
Biblically. So if you're looking at the Bible, what it says is Jesus takes all the sin and is crucified. In this, he's taking all the quote unquote sin, all the temptation, all the evil, and sacrificing himself in order to rid it or get rid of it. So to me, it was biblical. I thought that's how I thought of it.
That's amazing. I love that.
Thanks,
I love that, buddy.
What about you?
Well, no, it's interesting. What Friedkin was saying was that there's two types of people.
Okay.
And the way they view the end of the movie. You went further than I'm about to say, which is great. Okay. But people either view it as the demon winning, killing Father Karras, or they view it as good triumphing over evil, which is how I view it. I view it as Father Karras taking the demon in, and in the moment where the demon looks at Regan and wants to kill her, using Father Karras's body, Father Karras wins that brief struggle with the demon and then throws himself out the window to save her.
I agree.
Yeah, but it's interesting that there are some people that view the ending as evil triumphing. Because to be honest, the exorcism doesn't really work in this movie.
No, you're right. It really doesn't. That's true.
Yeah, it ends with the demon killing Father Merrin, or Father Merrin having a heart attack due to the stress of what the demon is causing.
Right.
But it's pretty much shown as the demon causing the death of Father Merrin.
Right. Because he's in there by himself, too, with Pazuzu Regan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only way that Father Karras is able to triumph is to call the demon inside him. You could say, though, and this is something I was thinking about, you could say that the exorcism did a good job of weakening Pazuzu's hold over Regan.
I agree with that. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, because even Pazuzu is acting different throughout it, and weaker and angrier, and yeah, so I totally get that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, man. Crazy.
Yeah. This is fun. This is a fun one to talk about.
Well, I mean, that's one reason I wanted to talk to you, because you have a whole different outlook on this movie. And it's interesting because I've asked you more than once, I believe, how your faith and your beliefs affect you when you watch horror movies.
Right.
I'll ask you again, since we're recording, like, how do you reconcile your faith and your beliefs, your religious beliefs, against the evil that you're watching in horror movies?
So I mean, because I've always thought, I guess using the religious side, I feel like there's still, good will always outweigh the bad, always. However, I'm going to go, I'm kind of almost not the person to ask this one to, for this reason, because I look at everything kind of from an actor standpoint. When I'm watching a scary movie, I'm not like, wow, that's really evil. For the most part, I'm like, wow, that's a really good effect. Or, oh, wow, I wonder how they filmed that. Or, oh, wow, that's a really cool idea. What did they do to make that happen? So for me, it's a little different. This would be an interesting one for someone that hasn't at least been in the industry like I have for a little bit, or that doesn't know it much. Because for me, I guess I never look at it like that. Even if a movie scares me, I still am like, wow, that was a good movie. I don't look at it like, wow, that really took a hold of me. To me, it's a movie. Even though it's scary, even though there's dark themes, it's a movie. So I don't know.
No, that's awesome.
I didn't really answer that probably the right way, but
What do you mean?
I don't know.
You answered it truthfully.
All right.
That's the correct way to answer.
Cool. All right.
So so for you, it's a disconnect. It's
right.
They're just a movie. Did you feel that way about The Exorcist as well?
I did. However, I'll just jump into the scene I fast forwarded for that reason.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So there's a scene where Reagan is using a crucifix as an inappropriate object on a part of her
She's
body.
masturbating with it.
There you go.
and it's bloody, and she's saying, "Let Jesus F you."
Yeah. So for me, that was the reason I didn't watch it want to watch it, because that one is a little blasphemic, I guess, or blasphemous for me. So that one hurt a little. That's why. So I appreciate that you told me what it was, because I paused it, moved it past that part, and hit play. So it was very easy to just bypass it. That would be the one thing where I couldn't disconnect. I went, that one feels kind of gross in my being, so I don't want to watch that part, and I don't think I ever will watch that part. I just don't. That one hurts a little bit. That one feels kind of icky. And
well, here's the $1 million question.
Okay.
Do you believe that demonic possessions are real?
So I actually had this conversation with my wife recently. Actually, after watching this. And again, I'm not I don't want anyone listening to this being like, Andrew's a Christian. He has all the answers, like, for Christianity beliefs. No, I don't.
Wait, you don't?
I don't. No.
What?
No, I'm not like a theologian. I did not go to school and study for years and years and years. But that being said, I have heard people say that they think that it's real, but not nearly anything like what movies make it out to be. I personally don't believe that they happen. I don't think that it's real. I think that people are influenced by possible evil, or have kind of that bad thought in their head or whatever. I think that can be influenced by something, but I don't think people really sit there and let something in and just become this creature or whatever, this demon. So personally, I don't believe that they happen. Like I said, I think people are influenced, but that's about it. That's my belief.
That's interesting, because I don't know what to believe myself. I'm the kind of person with anything when it comes to ghosts, UFOs, even possession, that it's hard for me to believe it unless I see it with my own eyes.
Right.
And then with possession, there's the added thing, is it possession or is it mental illness? Which is brought up in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And it's brought up very much in the book too, about, they try to exhaust everything in medical terms of what might be wrong with Reagan. Exactly. They go through all kinds of stuff with her head and her brain, and then they get a psychiatrist to talk to her. They hypnotize her, and they just can't figure it out. And even Father Karras, which I'm going to get into this in a second, because he's the most interesting character to me in this movie.
I would agree with you.
His journey through the movie is incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually have somebody that's very close to me who can't watch movies like this, because she says that her father actually witnessed actual demonic possessions where he's from.
Wow.
And so they scare her.
Okay.
So she can't watch them. Alex, who is one of the two hosts of The Gory Gaze with Stanley, who was my beautiful co-host in our last episode. Alex, his favorite movie is The Exorcist.
Oh, okay.
And he said in their first episode, he told Stanley that he believes possessions are real.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting. People believe that possessions are real.
Which is great. What's funny is, the Christian belief is based on faith. And yet I'm kind of one of those people that's like, yeah, but I got to see it, which is kind of totally contradicts the belief. But
that's very interesting to me, because there's so much that goes into beliefs and faith when it comes to like you said, Christianity and believing in God and Jesus.
Right.
You would think that somebody who is able to have faith in something like that could also take the leap to have faith in the evil. But now let's stop, buddy. Because Pazuzu is an actual demon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pazuzu is an actual demon. However, if you look up Pazuzu, Pazuzu is not necessarily an evil entity.
Okay.
Pazuzu is known as a personification of the southwest wind. So they refer to him as the southwest wind. I believe he's referred to in the book. He's destructive and dangerous, but he's also a repellent to other demons.
Oh, okay.
And as a matter of fact, pregnant women and mothers would wear or have a figurine of Pazuzu to protect them from other evil spirits, other evil demons.
Huh.
This is not a spoiler, okay? I'm going to mention The Exorcist Believer.
Okay.
This is not a spoiler. This is just something that's very interesting because that movie, I've seen it, does not mention the name of the demon that's in that movie. But if you look behind the scenes, if you read interviews, the demon in that movie is Lamashtu. And the interesting thing is that in reality, quote unquote, Pazuzu and Lamashtu are adversaries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Lamashtu preys on pregnant women and mothers. And that has nothing to do with The Exorcist Believer. So this is not a spoiler at all for that movie.
Okay.
It's just very interesting to me when I found that out that they chose Lamashtu as the demon in The Exorcist Believer. And supposedly, of course, that's supposed to be a trilogy. And I wonder if that's going to come out in the trilogy, the whole Pazuzu-Lamashtu relationship.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, that's very interesting to me that Pazuzu is not necessarily known as a demonic or evil demon.
Interesting.
There you have it, buddy.
Huh. All right. Well, I learned something today. Pretty demonic in the first Exorcist, though.
yeah. He's pretty evil.
Yeah, he's pretty evil.
Yeah. So in The Exorcist, yeah, Pazuzu is very evil.
Yeah.
He's a liar, a great liar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump into something right here, buddy.
Okay.
I actually relate to Pazuzu in a certain respect.
Okay.
If you notice, Pazuzu does have powers in this movie.
You have powers.
Exactly. I make things float.
Yep.
No, Pazuzu.
You're right. Yeah.
Pazuzu is able to do things, but if you notice, when Father Karras or Father Marin command Pazuzu, or mostly Karras, when Father Karras asks Pazuzu to prove things,
yep,
Pazuzu says no. You know, he says, if you're the devil, you could just undo those straps. And Pazuzu says that's much too vulgar a display of power.
Yeah.
But yet we also see a scene where Regan is tied up in her bed, but after Lieutenant Kinderman talks to Chris and he goes out to his car, he looks up at the window and you see a walking figure, a shadow walking in front of the window.
Right. That's right.
So she's tied up in her bed, yet at that moment she's not. She's supposedly walking around her bedroom. So Pazuzu is able to do these things. However, he refuses to do these things on command.
Right.
He opens the drawer
when
Karras is sitting there, and Karras says, do that again. And Pazuzu says, in time.
I like that scene, actually.
Dude, I loved both of this first scene. Every scene, starting with the scene where Father Karras first talks to Regan / Pazuzu.
Right.
Every scene with her, with the priests, with him and Marin, are just incredible. I could watch them over and over.
I agree.
But anyway, what I was getting at is when I was an actor, in my young years,
yeah,
I was the same way. I loved to act. I loved to go up on stage. But when people would ask me to do some lines from a play I was in or something, like my grandmother would say, do some lines. And I'd be like, no, I'd get shy. No.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to. I've seen people that if you command them, if you ask an actor, hey, do a line from that, they just turn on right there.
Right. Yep.
You know, so in that respect, I'm like Pazuzu, I guess.
Hey, right on. Well, I'll send you a vial of holy water just in case you get too out of hand.
Thanks, pal.
You're welcome.
My neck really hurts after I sleep at night. I tell you what. Did you think this movie was slow in the first half? Or did you think it was well paced?
I thought it was well paced. And I think it's the good. Well, you had mentioned it's not like before we watched it wasn't a spoiler or anything. You just said, give it time. It doesn't like start off with so much craziness, which I appreciate you telling me that, because when I went into it, seeing the way it moved, I was like, okay, I get what he was saying, but this really is, we're getting the story we need to. We're getting the backstory, which of course will culminate into something at the end. So I thought it was paced fine. I liked it. And I thought that second half really does have an insane amount of craziness, but it led up to it. Yeah. So it didn't feel like, whoa, too much, guys. It was like, oh, okay, we made our way there. That was the journey.
Yeah, I pay way more attention to this, watching it this time and reading the book. I love the way the characters are written. I love that Chris McNeil is an atheist. Right. And so she's having to deal with this. Mm-hmm. I said I would mention Father Karras. I love Father Karras because Father Karras is a priest who is having a very big struggle with his faith.
Right.
He feels like he's lost his faith.
Right.
Everywhere he looks, he just sees signs that God doesn't exist. That why would God allow this evil in the world?
Right.
Like when his mother is sent, his mother's brother sends her to an insane asylum, and since they don't have money, they don't send her to a good one.
No, gosh, no.
And that really weighs on Father Karras. So another thing he's dealing with is his guilt. He feels like he's not there enough for his mother. And then she dies, and he feels guilty over that. Mm-hmm. So when he comes into this situation with Reagan, it's amazing to watch him go into the bedroom and talk to Reagan and Pazuzu, yet he still doesn't believe. We're seeing all these signs as viewers of the movie that there's no way this can be faked.
Right.
And even something as crazy as Reagan / Pazuzu talking in the exact voice of the homeless man that Father Karras comes across in the subway.
Yeah, dude.
God, what does he say? You got something for an old altar boy, Father?
That's right. Yep.
Creepy. Even that, Karras is having a hard time believing.
Right.
He's almost there. Mm-hmm. In fact, I would say even when Pazuzu Reagan is speaking backwards.
Right. Yeah.
And Karras takes the recording and then he plays it. The other guy says, oh, it's English. And he plays it backwards, and you can understand what the demon's saying, which is very creepy to me, by the way.
Me too, dude.
Not the fact that the demon is speaking backwards, but the things that the demon is saying.
Yes, agreed. Yep.
Did you get what it was saying?
I don't remember. I didn't write it down, but I just remember being like, ugh.
It's basically saying we are no one. It's talking to itself as if it's multiple personalities.
Right. That's right.
It's arguing with itself over whether it should let Reagan die.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like, when I started to understand that more, that creeped me out. That, jeez.
So I'm going to ask a question, because jumping into that, because I feel like they kind of explained it, but I can't remember. So help me out. And maybe it's just to do with his like lack of faith with what's happening. But Pazuzu, gets quote unquote burned by the sink water. It's not holy water. It's sink water. It's speaking English, not Latin. There's all these signs that it might not be a possession, that it might be just, her acting out or whatever they say it is. Why? Like, why not have it speak this Italian, speak Italian? Or like, what was the point of that, I guess?
Well, it did speak Latin.
Okay,
it or Latin.
Latin, yeah.
No, I mean, you just gave an example. Like, why wouldn't it speak Italian? It did speak Latin. It spoke French for a moment. But these are both things that Reagan could conceivably have heard in herself. But nobody can accurately speak backwards like that. Just, you have to really practice it.
Okay.
To be able to actually speak English backwards in that way.
Mm-hmm. Then I guess, like, why, like why did the Pazuzu freak out over the sink water then too? Like, what was the reasoning behind all that?
I don't know, but what do you think? Like, you just got to think of your own interpretation. Is Pazuzu just messing with Father Karras?
Maybe. And maybe that could be it. Just to, again, oh, okay, I have an idea. Okay, it just hit me. Maybe.
Tell me.
So the demon Pazuzu doesn't like to be told what to do. And it's almost like by speaking Latin or getting burnt by holy water, it's doing what it's supposed to do as a demon. So maybe doing the opposite or whatever is almost going against that. Here's what I should be doing, but it doesn't like to be told what to do. So I'm going to do the opposite. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know.
The other thing I would think of is, on one hand, you have a father, a priest,
right,
who needs to have faith to believe that what's happening to this girl is a demonic possession. On the side of Pazuzu, also has to have faith that there is a power of good. So he believes Father Karras. The water's not actually burning him, but he believes, because Father Karras says that the water is holy, he believes that it is.
Okay, I get that.
So you can just never trust Pazuzu. I mean, that's the thing.
You never trust those demons, man.
When Father Marin is about to go into the room with Father Karras for the first time, Father Karras warns Father Marin that he thinks that there are multiple personalities in there. And Father Marin just simply says, there is only one.
Yeah.
And that's like a huge moment.
Yeah, that one was awesome.
It's just one demon, but this demon is taking on so many different personalities. But I do think the demon is just messing with them the entire time.
That's fair. Yeah.
There's times when the demon actually gets offended and angry. I just think in that moment the demon believes that it's holy water. Okay. And it's acting the way it should be acting when holy water is thrown on it.
All right.
But Father Karras still has reason to not believe because of that, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
There's other things that have happened where Father Karras is questioning it. But the moment that Father Karras finally fully believes enough that he thinks we should do an exorcism is the moment the words "help me" appear on her stomach.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Because that is an impossible thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. I love I'm going to jump back to the very beginning of the movie, even before the Iraq scene.
Oh, okay.
Some of the scenes that were taken out of the theatrical version that Friedkin put back in are just so good. One of which is the first two shots. The movie opens with a shot of their home in Georgetown.
Right.
Then a shot of the Virgin Mary.
Right.
And it's basically Friedkin is just showing two shots of what's going to be attacked by this demon. This home and also this statue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
I do love the title card when the title card comes up and it just says The Exorcist. There's something about that because I know that I am in for 2 hours of just an incredible... I hate to even call it a ride. Right. But it is kind of a ride of a movie. Like,
I would call it that. I think that that works.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
William Friedkin's commentary for this movie was very good.
Lay it on me.
For the most part.
Okay.
Because he explained a few things. Like he's the one that said in the commentary that the opening of the movie is about Father Marin understanding that he's about to have to face off with Pazuzu again.
Okay. Yeah.
But the other funny part is that a lot of the commentary is just Friedkin being descriptive of what's happening on the screen.
Oh, no.
It's one of those.
Oh, no. Okay.
But he brings out things, and there's certain things that I definitely want to mention. One thing he brought out that really hits me in this movie, and I'll ask you this.
Okay.
In real life, when something dark happens, something sad, okay?
Yeah.
We don't have to go into specifics, but I know certain sad things have happened to you.
Right.
When you're going through that, do you ever see other people going about their lives oblivious to what you're going through and just think of the juxtaposition of somebody just walking down the street, having a nice, happy conversation with somebody while you're going through this immense sadness.
I have. I've done it both ways as well. So absolutely. Yeah.
Because one thing that strikes me about this movie, Friedkin even mentioned it, there's the scene where Lieutenant Kinderman is talking with Father Karras.
Mm-hmm.
And they're walking by a tennis court next to the college there.
Yes. Yep.
And Friedkin made a point to mention how people are living their lives. The background is full of life, while this immense evil and darkness is happening in this one bedroom in this house.
Yeah.
And these people have no idea. They're just going about their lives and living happy, let's play tennis lives.
Yeah.
It's just one of these things. I think about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I constantly look at people walking down the street, and not in a nosy way, but I just think to myself, they are going through something completely different than I am right now.
Yeah, for sure. I've had that same thought. Like even once in a while, I'll just especially if I see someone that's definitely sad or down about something, where I've had that moment where I'm like, man, today's a good day. That whatever's happening in them, that's horrible. Like, that sucks. Or I'll even say, why is my day so great? You know what I mean? Like, I've definitely had that. And then I've done the opposite, where it's like, my day sucks. Why are they having a good day? Like this, everyone should feel bad today, But
I don't necessarily judge people like that. I don't really think, why are they having a good day when I'm not? I just think of the juxtaposition of, I'll be honest, when my dad died, you know, I was just sitting in my apartment after hearing the news, and I was just sitting there kind of in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And the sadness, and then I would have to run out to get food or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see people going about their lives, not knowing that somebody walking by them just had horrible news.
Right.
And I don't feel bad. I don't feel like mad at them or like, why do they get to go about their lives? I don't feel like that. It's just, I think about that. It's something I try to think about a lot, like bad service at a coffee shop. You never know what's going on with a person and what they're going through in their life.
Yep.
So that scene, it's just a small scene, but it hit me so hard when Friedkin said that about that scene, because none of us are going through demonic possession.
Right.
But yet this little girl, this 12-year-old little girl, is in the movie.
Right.
I think she's 12.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a demon living in this bedroom, taking over this little girl's personality and her body and everything, and torturing her from within. And these people are playing tennis.
Right.
It's just a crazy juxtaposition to think about.
For sure.
So anyway, now that everybody's depressed.
Right. And wait, let me rephrase that too. I don't, if I'm ever sad, I don't always think that. That's just, I was giving an example. I don't want people being like, wow, Andrew's a real jerk. Whenever he's sad, he hates that everyone's happy. No, that's not true. So,
I didn't really think you thought that a lot.
I know. I just wanted to make sure.
You have too pure a heart.
Oh, thank you, buddy. I think you do.
But now saying that, what did you think of the statue desecration in the church?
Oh man, that was hardcore. I was not expecting that. And I love how they filmed it too, where you see the priests come in, not really paying attention, just doing his daily whatever he's doing, setting stuff up. And then that moment he just looks, and I was not expecting that. Once he looked, I was like, what is he looking at? When I see it, I just went, oh my gosh, not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing that they don't really show in the movie, how do you think the statue got like that? Did you think about that at all?
No. Now I am.
First of all, in the movie, one thing is mentioned. The little bird, the bird that Reagan makes a little sculpture of when she shows it to her mom before she talks about the Ouija board and Captain Howdy. Now, in the book, Lieutenant Kinderman visits Chris McNeil 2 times. And the first time he's sitting in the kitchen, and that little statue is on the kitchen table. And he just nonchalantly touches it. And when he leaves the house, it turns out that he touched it because he was very surreptitiously scraping a little bit off onto his fingernail. And then he takes it to the lab, and it turns out that it's the same material that's found on the desecration of the statue of the Virgin Mary.
Oh.
So then the implication is that probably in the middle of the night, Pazuzu, as Reagan, leaves her bedroom and goes to the church and desecrates the statue in the middle of the night, and then goes back. That's kind of crazy. It's not something that's really talked about in the movie.
No, not at all. And I didn't even think of it until this now, but I was like, oh yeah, who did that? That's weird. Okay, interesting.
How about the dinner party?
Oh my God. So I think I had seen that scene. Maybe it was like In Search of Darkness or something.
Yeah.
I didn't remember it, but I knew that she peed for some reason. So when she comes down, I was like, I think she's about to pee. And then she started going. I was like, okay, I've seen this somewhere. So, or maybe, honestly, it might have been Scary Movie, because I think they did a parody of it. I don't remember. But I knew it was coming. So that was crazy, though.
Of course, I think for me, the creepy part of that scene is when she looks at the astronaut and she says, "You're going to die up there."
Yeah. Yep.
And we don't know who the astronaut is, so we don't know if he died up there.
Right.
He's not named in the book either. He's just known as the astronaut. So yeah, that was a pretty. I actually do. Not that I love what happens in the scene, but I like how that scene is done. I love the acting of everybody around the piano and the way that they kind of look concerned, but also embarrassed for Chris.
Yeah.
But Chris is just concerned for her daughter, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I liked, I mean, and not I like, but I think she even says like she's not feeling well or something, like she's just sick, you know?
Yeah.
You're just like, oh gosh. Oh, if only you knew.
I did find myself, since we're talking about the beginnings of Reagan's possession, I did find myself, especially the second time I watched it this past week, paying really close attention to how good Linda Blair did as innocent Reagan. Like, that's something that really hit me, I guess, was how innocent this little girl is before all these horrible things happen to her.
Right.
Obviously, I think people know not every scene when she's got all the makeup on, not every scene of that is Linda Blair. A lot of them are, but there are certain scenes that were done by a double. Her name is Eileen Dietz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she played possessed Reagan. The part where she's thrusting her hips at the doctors and Chris and stuff. That wasn't actually Linda Blair.
Oh, that actually makes me much happier.
But the other scene, the scene that you don't, that it's hard to watch, that was Linda Blair. But as I told you, people would think that that was a very heavy day on set, a very tense, anxious day.
Right.
But because of how nonchalantly Linda Blair handled that scene and filming, she was joking, she was laughing in between takes and everything. Everybody had a much easier time than you would expect filming that scene.
That's good.
And I told you that beforehand so that you would maybe be able to handle it easier.
Fair. Jumping back to Linda Blair, though, I do want to say one thing but one part I really enjoyed was when the detective is listening to or maybe it's not a detective, it might be the father. I can't remember. Someone's listening to the audio of Reagan and Chris sending a message on a tape to her dad.
Father Karras.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember who was listening. But I really like that scene because it almost sounded like it may not have even been scripted, and maybe it was. But just because that's exactly how a 12-year-old would do it. Like something like that.
Yeah.
I've listened to old things that I said on tapes before, and I've listened to things like even my dad has said, and it's that same thing of like, I don't know what to say. Like, what do I talk? I don't know what to do. And it's true. Like, it just felt so, I was like, that's a really cute, totally 12-year-old thing to do. And I love that scene. I just thought it was adorable.
That scene is actually a scene that was cut out of the theatrical version.
No way.
Yeah, and it's an important scene because it's part of Father Karras starting to believe that there's actually a demon possessing her. he needs to hear the innocence in her voice before all this happened.
Right.
Against the demon voice that comes out of her later.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a great scene. Here's something I found out today.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. William Peter Blatty was actually pretty mad at William Friedkin for cutting out as much as he did. Friedkin cut out about 12 minutes of the movie on the recommendation of somebody he respected the opinion of, who said this movie doesn't really need this or this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, some of the scenes. Some of them are fine, like the doctor talking to Chris in his office. There's one scene that's, it's fine. I think it's needed.
Right.
One of the biggest scenes for me is near the very end. After Father Marin and Father Karras have their first confrontation with Reagan Pazuzu.
Right. Yeah.
And they're sitting on the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
And Father Karras is asking why this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote it down because I love Marin's line when he says, I think the point is to make us despair, to see ourselves as animal and ugly, to reject the possibility that God could love us.
Yeah.
Which infers that Pazuzu is not really doing this to torture and hurt Reagan. He's doing this to torture everybody else.
Right.
To mess with Father Karras's faith.
Mm-hmm.
To try and shake and rattle Marin, who he's done battle with before.
Right.
And also to mess with everybody in the house.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
and that scene was cut?
That scene was cut. I'm so glad they put it back in.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
Now, when I saw The Exorcist in theaters back when this version was released.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I remember thinking that the spider walk or the crab walk scene down the stairs was really freaky and creepy.
Right.
And now I can honestly say that is the only scene in the director's cut that I don't like.
I agree. I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking it was creepy, but even watching it this time, I was like, meh. Like when they do the close up on the mouth and all the blood comes out, I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's obviously not Linda Blair.
Right. Yeah.
The crab walk itself is kind of sped up.
Yeah.
Which just doesn't fit with the very practical nature of everything else.
Right. Yes.
Now, the scene in the book, I'm going to tell you about the scene in the book.
Please.
Because it's very similar. I don't remember if there's blood coming out of her mouth, but basically she crab walks down the stairs at the same moment in the book as it is in the movie.
Okay.
Chris is there with Sharon, her assistant.
Right.
And Reagan comes down the stairs and is crab walking behind Sharon and constantly following her and sticking her tongue out and trying to lick her ankles.
That's way worse.
And it turns out they actually filmed a version of that scene with that, where as Reagan gets to the turn in the stairs, she turns over onto her all fours and starts crawling towards Sharon with her tongue, like a little like demon tongue lashing out and trying to lick Sharon's ankles. And it doesn't look as creepy as it feels in the book.
Okay.
It kind of looks silly.
Okay.
So that's the only scene I could do without of the new director's cut scenes.
Fair. So that scene was deleted originally too, or no?
Yeah. The crab walk scene. Yeah.
Okay. Crazy.
Yeah. Because back then they didn't have CG. So they couldn't, in 1973, they couldn't get rid of the wires very well. The wires were way too obvious.
Right. Okay.
And plus, in the original footage of that shot, she's also going down the stairs slower. It's not sped up. But with the advent of CG, they were able to do a few things that I'm not sure. I want to see if you noticed in the movie.
Oh, okay.
First of all, something I'm sure you probably noticed. There's a scene where she gets hypnotized. And right before she reaches out and grabs the psychiatrist's nuts and squeezes his balls, her face turns demonic for a second. Did you notice that?
I didn't, actually. No.
Yeah, it kind of changes for a second.
Oh, interesting. I need to rewatch that part.
Also, there's a part where Chris McNeil comes into the house and she's coming into the kitchen and the lights are flickering and then they go out. When they come on, there's a quick little flash of Pazuzu.
Yep.
Or the actor playing Pazuzu.
I actually really liked that scene a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, ooh, ooh, that's horrifying.
Now, right after that, I'm going to see if you noticed them all. Because obviously there are other moments like when Father Karras is dreaming of his mother coming out of the subway. Right. And he gets flashes. He sees a flash of Pazuzu's face.
Yep.
There's things like that. But then there's a couple others. Did you notice when right after that scene, Chris goes up to Reagan's bedroom? Mm-hmm. The scene cuts to the inside of Reagan's bedroom door right before Chris opens it. And there's a quick flash of, again, Pazuzu's face, but the statue Pazuzu's face. It's a quick frame flash.
I don't know if I caught that one. Interesting. I love it, though.
One more.
That's so cool. Yeah,
one more,
please.
buddy. Right before Father Karras, at the end of the movie, throws himself out of the window. Mm-hmm. Did you catch the flash of his mom's face in the window?
No. Oh, that's cool.
You're about to watch this movie again.
I think I need to. Now I'm like, oh, shoot, what'd I miss? Wild. Oh, that's cool. I love stuff like that, though. I love quick catch, blink and you'll miss it moments. So now I'm like, I like that. Okay.
Did you know this was based on a true story? I'm dead serious.
What?
Yeah.
No.
This is based on the story of, I think, a little boy who was possessed in the 40s, I believe. And this is what William Peter Blatty based his novel on.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes. Much of the exorcism that we see in the movie is taken from actual quote unquote real life accounts of exorcisms. And all of the changes that Reagan goes through are taken from, again, supposed real life accounts of exorcisms.
Yikes. Huh. I don't know what to think about that.
Levitation is a supposed thing. The only thing that, to me, and I haven't gotten to this part in the book. And I want to see how it's described in the book. The only thing that to me still doesn't make sense is one of the most famous moments in the movie.
Okay.
It's when Karras and Marin are in the bedroom and her head turns all the way around in a 360. Because I know the demon is manipulating her.
Right.
And doing things to her, but I would think in a case like that, the demon would not be able to turn her head 360 degrees without actually breaking her physical neck.
Right. I agree with that. I actually think I had that same thought watching it, because the other stuff I get, and even when she at the end is healed or whatever, I think she even has some scars.
Oh yeah. Bruising and scars.
Yeah, bruising and scarring. So that doesn't make sense. She should be, dead, in all honesty.
Yeah, especially the fact that Burke Dennings, the director, who we don't see his death, we just hear about it.
Right. Yep.
At the bottom of the steps, we find out later that his head was turned 180 degrees the other way.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting to me, and it's something that I'm just going to have to leave as a open-ended question here on the podcast, but I'll probably mention it to you once I get to the part in the book.
Please do. Yeah. I'm very curious if they say anything about that.
One thing about another one of the most famous scenes in the movie, but it's a true thing about exorcisms, is when a priest is performing an exorcism, it's typical that if he says something that creates a noticeable reaction in the demon or the person possessed, that priest will then repeat that over and over to get a reaction. And that's where the power of Christ compels you. That's what that scene is representing.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's also the amazing levitation scene.
Right.
Yes. Which you can kind of see the wires in the movie if you look for them. But
oh, really?
The special effects person used a technique where he would paint the wire in dashes, which made it more invisible to the camera.
Interesting. That's wild. I kind of love that. Huh. That's really cool. Good for that person for coming up with that. Smart.
Did you know that William Friedkin's favorite scene in the entire movie is the scene between Lieutenant Kinderman and Chris MacNeil?
Oh, with the autograph scene?
Yeah, but everything before that.
Okay.
It caused me to pay more attention, and now it's one of my favorite scenes too. It's a fantastic acting scene.
Right.
Because, I mean, I mentioned Linda Blair. Everybody in this movie is incredible.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
The acting is top-notch, including Lee J. Cobb as Lieutenant Kinderman.
Right.
There's this dynamic between him and Chris MacNeil, Kinderman and MacNeil in that scene, where Kinderman is trying to say what happened to Burke Dennings without actually saying it. Chris MacNeil is realizing that her daughter killed Burke Dennings,
right?
But she can't say it. And it's just an incredible scene, the way that they're playing cat and mouse with each other.
Totally.
And one thing I didn't notice until Friedkin pointed it out was this moment where Chris MacNeil, she gets up. I should just say Chris. She gets up and she says, "Would you like another cup of coffee?" Thinking that Kinderman is going to politely decline and leave. But he says, "Yeah, I think I will." And she's got like this disappointment in her face because she wants him to leave.
Yep. I think I caught that because I remember thinking the same thing of like, wow, usually when people say that, it means like it's a subtle way of being like, you can go.
Yeah.
Now. That's funny. Oh, I got to rewatch. Yeah, I'll just have to rewatch it. But I will say I did thoroughly love that little moment, though, at the end of it. It was almost like a little relief after just where he asked for the autograph. He says, "It's for my daughter." And she goes, "Well, what's her name?" And he goes, "I lied. It's for me." Like, it's really cute. And I was like, aw.
It's cute, but it's also Kinderman's way of ingratiating himself with somebody he's interrogating, which is part of his character. He does want the autograph because he is a movie fan, but he's also doing that to put Chris at ease.
That's fair.
Because he's trying to figure out, he knows that Dennings was murdered.
Right.
And he's trying to figure out how. And the only way he can figure it out is by talking to Chris. And he knows he's going to have to come back. In fact, he does come back at the end right before Father Karras throws himself out the window.
Which I have to say something about that.
Yes.
Okay, so this detective knows things are going on, but hasn't seen anything. And then at the end, he walks in on glass shattered. He already thinks that Reagan is doing some of the stuff, for the most part. Glass is shattered, she's in the corner, and the priest is dead on the ground. That's all he sees. I'm like, wouldn't he all like be like, "Oh, you're the killer. You're the only one here." And he's out there dead. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't see anything else. I don't know.
Think about it from a practical point of view. I don't think he ever suspects that Reagan did it.
Really?
Because he suspects that somebody threw Burke Dennings out of the window with force. He does not know. He knows that Reagan is sick. He does not know that she is demonically possessed or anything.
Okay.
He's just trying to figure it out. In the book, he questions Carl, the male servant.
Yeah.
He actually reads Carl his rights, but then does not take him in because I think he's trying to catch Carl in a lie, and Carl doesn't lie. Whatever. I haven't gotten to the end of the book with Kinderman yet to see how the book describes Kinderman and his reaction to everything. I don't know. That's an unspoken thing. It's an unanswered question. What does Kinderman think of everything that he sees? Because he goes upstairs and he sees Reagan in the corner, which this is another thing that hit me the last time I watched this. The most recent time. I love the decision by Ellen Burstyn or whoever, if it was Friedkin, when Reagan goes into the corner and she's crying because she's herself again. And she has no idea what just happened to her. She just knows that everything's crazy.
Right.
I love Chris's hesitation in going to hug her daughter.
Yep.
Because you'd think that she would just go straight to her. But there's still a hesitation wondering if this is really her daughter back or is it still Pazuzu messing with her?
And again, I mean, Pazuzu's a trickster. So I totally get that. I mean, Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that though. I agree. That's a good moment.
Talking about the people in the house, the servants and Sharon, the assistant. Another scene that really hit me this time was the part with Sharon, where she's she's trying to listen to the news to drown out the sounds.
Yep. How
freaking disturbing would that be to hear those noises constantly coming from upstairs?
I thought the same thing. And then when Sharon at the end leaves and quits, I was like, yeah, I would too. Like that whole experience was freaky. And I thought about that scene of like, you almost don't come back from that. That would be, I get it. I would do the same thing. So yeah, horrifying, really creepy. If I heard that from my neighbors, we would move.
But much less in your own house.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like from upstairs. And that's honestly, that's something that I didn't think about too much when I was in bed after watching this movie or reading the book. But I think that's part of what creeped me out. Like just the thought of hearing that noise and that voice, because it's just a horrible voice.
Yeah, I agree.
And also evidently there's a horrible smell of excrement is what they're smelling. You can see it when Reagan suddenly becomes Pazuzu during the hypnotism scene. You can see where they recoil because of the smell. And yeah, it's just when Pazuzu's around, there's just this horrible smell of excrement, and that's how it's described in the book.
So gross. Demons are creepy.
Yeah, they're not good.
No.
Here's some stuff. So I also watched, this is a few behind the scenes things.
Yay.
And I know you love this.
I always do.
Cursed Films is a series on Shudder. Each episode talks about a different movie and how it was supposedly cursed, the filming of the movie. And The Exorcist is actually episode 1. And it's really good. Although I'll warn you right now, at the beginning of the episode, they show the scene.
Okay. All right.
So just be prepared if you decide to watch it. Evidently, at one point in the filming of this movie, all of the sets caught on fire and burned.
Whoa.
Reagan's room was left untouched.
That's freaky.
Creepy. To talk about this next thing, I want to talk about what to me is the scene in this movie.
Okay.
The scene that bothered me as a kid, haunted me, and evidently is one of the main reasons that people walked out of the theater when this movie first came out.
That's right. I forgot that people left. Yeah. What was it, though?
The angiogram scene, which is the scene where they put Reagan in the hospital on the table and they stick the needle in her neck.
Oh, that was horrifying. That was one of the grossest things. Well, I didn't even know what they were doing. I'm like, they're doing something with their head. What the heck is this about?
Yeah, they put dye. They put this dye in her bloodstream. And that way, when they take x-rays of her head, her blood vessels show up easier in her brain.
Why in the neck? I mean, good gravy. That was, and then when the blood shoots out, oh, that was gross. That was horrible.
That is not in the book.
Oh, really?
Friedkin was at a hospital and doing research, and he saw this procedure done to somebody else. And he said, that has to be in my movie.
Do they still do it that way?
From what I understand, I'm not sure.
Oh, I hope not.
I think that procedure is still done at times, but I'm not sure.
Gosh.
I tried to look that up and I couldn't find anything.
Oh.
But you know me, I have a fear of hypodermics.
Right.
Hypodermic needles. That scene destroyed me as a child.
I bet. Oh.
More than anything having to do with the possession. That scene was what was imprinted in my brain.
I love it. Oh, that's
now here's a true story.
Yeah.
The doctors in that scene were real doctors.
Oh, were they really?
Real radiologists. One of them is a man named Paul Bateson, who a couple years after the movie was released, he killed somebody and he came out and admitted it. He confessed. Geez. That's the word I'm looking for. He confessed to killing a man and was arrested for it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, one of the radiologists in The Exorcist is an actual murderer.
Yikes, dude. That's horrifying.
That is a little horrifying.
Yeah.
A couple other things. I mean, people died surrounding this movie. I forget who all. I think Linda Blair's grandmother, somebody close to somebody else. People died around the making of this movie. And I'm sure that happens a lot, but, obviously people played into the curse of the movie and the demon.
Of course.
But some other bad things happened. Linda Blair, in the scene where they walk in, it's the first scene where you actually see true signs of possession, where she's being thrown back and forth on the bed.
Yes.
And then her eyes roll back and her neck bulges. There's a shot, if you watch the cursed films, they show an outtake of that scene, and that seriously hurt her back.
Oh no.
Because they loosen the straps a little bit, and there's one time they yell cut, and Linda Blair's just crying.
Oh
because
no.
it hurt. Also, evidently William Friedkin can be a kind of a bastard on set. The part where Reagan puts I don't know if you saw this because you said you fast forwarded through the scene.
Right.
Did you see the part where Reagan puts her mom's face down there and then holds her and then smacks her and hits her and she goes flying across the room?
No, so we start it and she's on the ground.
Okay, so that's what happens. She actually buries her mom's face in her crotch. That's why her face is bloody. And then she hits her mom. To get the effect of her hitting her mom across the room, they had Ellen Burstyn attached to a harness and somebody pulling the harness. The first time it didn't look too good. So Friedkin told the guy to pull harder, to go for it. And so he pulled her. And so when you see Ellen Burstyn hit her head on the back of the baseboard of the wall, that's real. And she really hurt herself.
Oh, gee.
So this is all stuff that was mentioned in cursed films.
Wow, dude. Yikes.
And then the episode goes into like real life exorcisms and stuff. It's kind of interesting, but
wow.
Here's some more behind the scenes stuff for you.
Lay it on me.
Evidently, they didn't have visual effects back then, CG, right?
Right.
So to get oxidation of the breath to show how cold her bedroom is, it's got to be cold in there.
Right.
And evidently that was very difficult to shoot because they had to basically freeze that room enough so that people's breath were showing and then film it real quick, film these scenes quickly enough before the room warmed up enough that the breath went away.
That's wild.
And poor Linda Blair had to sit there in the bed, she's tied up. So she had to sit there just wrapped up in a robe and stuff and blankets.
Oh, kiddo. Jeez.
What a freaking shoot.
Yeah, man. Holy crap.
If you watch the movie again, pay attention to how Father Karras in a lot of scenes is seen rising up out of something, walking up a hill or coming out of a subway station.
Right. Yeah.
That was on purpose because Friedkin wanted to have a subconscious image of Karras constantly rising, which is a premonition of the ending of the movie of him rising to heaven, basically.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. Because I do remember
not
that.
a premonition, but foreshadowing. I meant to say foreshadowing.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Did you know that William Peter Blatty was a comedy writer before he wrote The Exorcist?
Whoa. No.
And he wrote The Exorcist over 9 months in a house in Encino.
Random, but
like
cool.
90% of the book or 90-something% of the book was written in that house. Wow. There's a really good extra bonus feature.
Did they go to the house?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And he just kind of, Blatty is just kind of taken aback being in the house again.
I bet. Oh man.
Yeah, I guess we're coming to the part where we just like kind of go over our notes, and I have a bunch of little tidbits that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
And I think you have a couple or one.
Yeah.
But number one, did you know this movie was released 6 months after I was born?
No.
It explains a lot, doesn't it?
It does, actually. Yeah, makes sense.
Max von Sydow. Let's talk about him for a second.
Yeah.
Because this is funny. I did not realize until into my adult years that Max von Sydow was not an old man during the making of this movie. It's
really?
Yeah. I mean, now I can see that it's old makeup.
Right.
But also his acting, the way he acts so fragile.
Right.
Like you really feel like he's on the verge of death. Like,
right.
Like
Shaking.
Anything could mess his heart up. That's a huge tribute to Max von Sydow.
For sure. Oh, man. I have to say, though, one thing I'm going to interrupt you about is I really loved, there's a line in it where he's going to have some brandy. And he goes, the doctors say I shouldn't, but thank God my will is weak. And I love that line. I think it's a great line. I think it's brilliant.
He's just so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Did you know during the film shoot scene in the movie where they're filming at the college, there is a point at the very beginning of that scene where there's like producers talking to Burke Dennings, the director, and following him as Chris is coming out of her trailer. One of those producers is William Peter Blatty, the author.
Oh, really?
He's the guy with the mustache, if you ever watch it again.
Sweet.
For the first time ever, I noticed that kids running down the street when Chris is walking home are wearing Halloween costumes.
Oh, man. Right on.
The beginning of this movie takes place on Halloween. So it's a Halloween movie.
Sweet. And I think that's when we first hear the infamous music, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Which I'm going to talk about the music in a second.
Yeah.
I got to talk about the music.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so I noticed that this time. That was interesting. Another note I've mentioned Father Karras and his character. But something also that struck me this time is Jason Miller, who plays Father Karras. The way he plays this man who has that calm air of a priest on the outside, but that you can see how much he's struggling on the inside.
Totally.
Jeez. Totally. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible acting.
He's great.
And the same thing with Ellen Burstyn. Like,
oh, man.
The way she plays a mom who loves her daughter so much and is just barely holding it together for her. Unbelievable.
I know. Phenomenal.
It took me a number of viewings, actually, until I watched it for the podcast here, to actually realize that when Pazuzu talks to Karras in the voice of the homeless man, I didn't realize until this time that it was the homeless man from the beginning of the movie. I don't know. It was just a blank spot. Yeah.
Right on.
And also when he says, and I'm gonna curse here, my friend, but when he's talking to Ellen Burstyn, he says, "Do you know what she did? Your cunting daughter."
Right. Yeah.
That's Burke Dennings' voice.
Oh, really?
The director. Yeah, I didn't know that. So those are some cool things that I didn't notice.
That's cool.
This is something that just stood out to me both times. And it's a sign of the times. Watching this movie that came out in 1973, you obviously notice all the smoking, people smoking everywhere. Yeah. Because that's how it was. And it just made me think back, like, holy crap, there was a time when people would just smoke in airplanes and theaters.
Yeah, dude.
But the other thing that just struck me is that something you would never see, I don't think, when Father Karras goes to ask for permission for the exorcism, and then there's the part where the two higher up priests are talking about it and discussing it in like a conference room.
Right.
There's like a number of ashtrays just all down the center of the conference table, which means that all these priests would just get together and have these meetings and smoke. All of them. They need that many ashtrays to smoke.
Oh my gosh. Well, remember, back in the day, though, it was healthy for you. So.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It was cool.
It was cool.
Did you have a little geek out when Father Marin got out of the cab and he stood in front of the house in the fog?
Yeah. I even told Cindy, I was like, that's the shot. I mean, that's The Exorcist. Yeah. They parodied it. It's been everywhere, but that is what people, if they see it, they know exactly what it is.
And what movie did we see? We did a movie in the past year where
it was the one, the comedy one.
Oh, was it?
Will Forte. I know they did one in that, but I think we saw another one too, but they did do one in that.
I think there was was a more serious movie that we did this year where they did an homage to that.
Yes, shoot.
and I can't remember which movie it was, but we covered it. So everybody go back and listen to all the episodes that we did this year until you find out which movie had the Exorcist homage.
You might as well just go back to the beginning and start over. Just so you can I mean, why not? What else have you got to do? Come on.
It might have been our first episode.
Yeah.
And if it's not that one, it's definitely the second or the third.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keep going. Something that I really noticed this time, because I watched the movie with headphones, was the background atmospheric sound during all the exorcism scenes.
Oh.
Because we're going to talk about the music in a second, but during those scenes, there was a very noticeable lack of music.
Right.
Instead, there was like this atmosphere sound.
Yeah, you're right.
It was really creepy.
Yeah.
It made me think and remember that when I moved to Los Angeles, I worked at a sound studio.
Nice.
And there was an amazing sound mixer that was then, I believe, the president of the company. His name was Buzz Knudsen. And he actually did sound mixing on this movie and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, dude. Oh, my gosh.
I remember hearing that when I moved here and talking to him. And I mean, he did a lot of great movies, the sound mixing at least. But when I heard that he did those two movies, that's when I started idolizing him and just being like, oh, he's so great. But also like how that must have been sitting in a studio mixing the sound for both of these movies that have maybe the most disturbing soundtracks ever.
That's totally true.
Now the music. So,
yeah, buddy.
What'd you think? Okay, so what's your thoughts on the music, first of all?
Well, I mean, the theme, Tubular Bells or whatever.
Right.
Even having not seen this, I knew that song. I think it's everywhere. Like that is one of the most famous, not only just horror movie, but just movie in general themes that is out there. So I love it though. I've always thought it was creepy. I've always thought it was great. So I loved that. I loved now being able to see it kind of in its prime, if you will. It was fun. It was really fun.
But it brings up other movies that we've talked about recently, because if I'm correct here, well, I know that Tubular Bells was a piece written by Mike Oldfield, who was kind of a new age, I believe, instrumental composer, music producer back in the day. And he had an album called Tubular Bells, and the entire piece is like a 20-minute piece of music.
Whoa.
And they used a little bit of it in this movie. The actual composer of the score for The Exorcist is a man named Leonard Slatkin. The rest of the music, besides Tubular Bells, is the actual score. And it's not anything you would recognize if I played it, except for maybe the music at the very end credits.
Okay.
Because the very end credits come up and there's like this famous dun, 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 you know? That's exactly it, right?
It was perfect.
Spot
on, man.
Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, I actually listened to the soundtrack last week after watching the movie, just because I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to have some knowledge of the score. And it's not a very listenable album.
Really?
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces of music that, like Tubular Bells, is very quiet, but then builds for like 3 minutes. There's other pieces of music that start quietly. A lot of the pieces, though, are like these jagged strings that are just like, wee, wee. You know, I don't know. I can't even do it. It's just a cacophony of noise. And it's very cool, but it's also not easy to listen to unless you're somebody like me who likes experimental music. But anyway, yeah, Leonard Slatkin is the actual composer.
Wild though that the piece that was used wasn't his, but is arguably the most famous piece. That's people know of it as the Exorcist theme.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, if you listen to the soundtrack to The Exorcist Believer, they don't call back to Leonard Slatkin's jagged string score that I know of.
Really?
But they do call back to Tubular Bells.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, wild, dude. That's wild.
I got one more note, my friend.
Lay it on me, buddy.
One thing I also really loved, and I think it's a good note to end our main discussion on. The moment at the end of the movie when Reagan comes out of the house, when Father Dyer is talking to Chris in the driveway.
Oh, right.
Reagan comes out of the house, and she has that moment with Father Dyer. And again, it's not something that really hit me until this time. It's the fact that she doesn't recollect anything that happened. She has no memory of everything that transpired.
Right.
Because Pazuzu had taken her over.
Right.
But when she sees Father Dyer there, she focuses on his priest collar. And something inside her recognizes that as the symbol of somebody who tried to help her. And that's why she looks at Father Dyer and she just comes up to him and gives him a kiss on the cheek.
Right.
And then waves to him from the back of the car window.
Right.
I love that.
I do too. That's nice. Like a subliminal image or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For her.
Jeez, buddy, you ready for 3 questions?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Who would cross the bridge of death must answer me these questions 3.
Question number 1. What did you think was the best death or kill in The Exorcist?
Father Karras.
Why? Why?
Well, I mean, like we talked about, I feel like it was just a nice, I connected it biblically. It was a good way for good to triumph over evil. It was a horrifying death. I mean, that's a bad way to go, but it was a good, like I said, it was just good beating evil for me. That's what it was. It was the ending of someone good was able to finish it off. So it was a good death in that it stopped bad as well.
I agree.
Nice.
I absolutely agree with you, my friend. Also, the other 2 deaths in the movie are Burke Dennings and Father Marin, and you don't really see them.
That's true. Yep.
So, although I do, as sad as it is, Father Marin's death, I love the look on Reagan's face when she's sitting in the bed, just like,
oh my gosh,
like, did I do something bad?
Yeah.
Chuckling and laughing, which sends Karras, makes him angry.
Yeah.
And you don't want to see him when he's angry.
You wouldn't like him when he's angry.
Oh, I messed up the line, didn't I? Thank you. Thank you for correcting me.
Sorry.
Nonchalantly.
Sorry.
Question number 2,
really
my friend.
Yeah, okay.
Do you think The Exorcist is scary?
Oh, man. It's a question. So, for me, there are pieces that are very creepy and disturbing, but again, it didn't scare me. I slept fine that night. However, if people don't like we had kind of talked about your friend, I mean, possession movies, this one I could see absolutely horrifying people. In fact, so just a quick aside, my dad saw this when he was young, very young. I don't remember if he snuck in the theater or not. I don't remember the full story. But when he left, he and his buddy went home and he dropped his friend off, and he said, after I dropped him off, I ran the entire way home. He was scared to death, and to this day will not watch the movie. He said he will never watch it. So I absolutely get that, how and why this movie would scare the crap out of people. But for me, I wasn't very scared, to be honest.
Well, my friend, this is already a long episode, so I'm gonna go into a little detail here.
Yay!
Something I've been thinking about recently. I think ever since we did the Boogeyman, I'm rethinking what it means to me for a movie to be scary.
Right.
Because for the entire length of this podcast that we've been doing this, I've always thought, kind of like you said, I've kind of thought of a movie being scary if it affects me after it's over.
Yep.
But that discounts movies that to me are scary while I'm watching.
Yeah, totally fair.
So to me now, I'm starting to differentiate between different types of scares. Like, to me, The Boogeyman was a scary movie, even though I didn't think about it when the movie was over.
Right.
Talk to Me was a scary / disturbing movie, but it didn't sit with me. I don't know if any movie ever will.
Right.
Until I watch The Exorcist. The Exorcist, I think, is a very scary movie. Not necessarily for me, not necessarily for you, but objectively, I think The Exorcist is one of the most terrifying movies ever made.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
I think it scares more people than any other movie.
That'd be hard to argue. Yep.
And for me, it gets under my skin.
Yeah.
It gets under my skin enough that when I'm laying in bed at night, for the past couple of weeks since I watched this movie or rewatched it for the podcast, this past week, living with this movie, watching it a couple more times to take notes and whatnot, reading the book.
Right.
I find myself turning on my bedroom light when I go to bed and leaving it on for just a little bit longer than I usually do.
Oh, okay. That's fair, man.
Because normally with me, I go to bed and I turn off the light and I read from my iPad right away. Lights off. But I keep it on for a little bit longer now. I'm not as scared as I was the night I saw Paranormal Activity.
Right, yeah.
But it does get under my skin.
That's totally fair, man. I love that, though. I love that it has that effect. I mean, it shows it's kind of doing its job.
Yeah.
You know?
Question number 3, my friend. Andrew, did you have fun with horror?
Just a blast, man. A lot of laughs. No, I think I enjoyed this movie. I did. Is it a fun movie? No. Like, I don't think I sat there and was like, oh, these guys. No, it is a disturbing movie. I mean, there's a lot of horrifying, creepy, dark things in this movie. So I don't think I had fun, but I did enjoy this movie, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Good.
However, I'm going to say that having seen this movie a number of times,
right,
there's two halves to me watching this movie when it comes to fun.
Okay.
Everything you said, I agree with.
Okay.
But also, I've seen this movie enough times that I actually do have a lot of fun watching the exorcism scenes when I looked at them from the point of view of just fantastic filmmaking and incredible special effects, incredible acting, and incredible storytelling.
Yeah.
To me, that part is fun. And I get a thrill watching this movie. I watched this movie 3 times, and every single time I watched this movie just in awe of how amazingly well executed it is.
That's awesome, dude. I totally get that. I absolutely get that.
This may be the best horror movie ever made to me.
That's awesome, man.
Not my favorite now. Not my favorite.
Right. Yeah.
We differentiate between favorite and best.
Yes, we do.
But I think this may be the best horror movie ever made.
Wow. That's high praise. And I honestly, there's a lot of people that would agree with you, my friend. A lot. I got to rewatch it.
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Well, then let's introduce ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar a display of power, Karras.
Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
Alrighty, friend. You know what our next movie takes place on, right? In the next episode, what day it is?
Yes, I do.
And what day is that?
Halloween, my friend.
That's right. So I'm very curious. What is Fun with Horrors 2023 Halloween extravaganza movie?
You know what, buddy? I would actually say that our extravaganza started with The Exorcist.
That's fair.
That's a hell of a movie to do in October.
That's fair. All right.
But you and I decided that we were going to release an episode on Halloween Day.
Yes, sir.
You subconsciously, I think you kind of have a feeling because you said this movie takes place on Halloween. It does. It does take place on Halloween.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
You know how we got rid of that rule that, now we can pick any movie? Well, I'm picking a movie that is a favorite of both of ours.
Yay.
I figured we've done some dark movies. We did a movie about grief. We did a Talk to Me, which is, about
addiction.
We did The Exorcist, which is just a ball of fun. And I know I did Friday the 13th Part 3 with Stanley, but you weren't in that episode except for the very end.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time for some fun, buddy. Some
Let's
real true fun. For Halloween, we're watching Trick or Treat.
Yay!
Now that's Trick or Treat, directed by Michael Dougherty.
Yes.
Not the 1980s Trick or Treat
with Ozzy Osbourne.
Which I actually loved as a kid. I don't know if it holds up, but I did love it. But anyway, yeah, Trick or Treat. I thought about this. Like I said before, I wasn't sure if I was going to want to do Dark Harvest or Trick or Treat. And it was really a big toss-up because I know you were really looking forward to watching Dark Harvest.
Right.
And we haven't really talked about it, so I am looking forward to talking to you about it at some point.
Yeah.
But after watching Dark Harvest, while it does have a nice Halloween feel to it,
oh yeah,
I feel like Trick or Treat just is the perfect movie to talk about on Halloween Day.
For sure. Yes. I am so excited. People know that we love this movie, so I am so excited to discuss this because it'll be fun. We've never really talked in depth about this movie, so I'm really excited.
Not in depth.
No.
Just when you mentioned it as one of your 10 favorites, and back in our episode number 10.
Oh man! Wow.
Oh, that's crazy. Anyway, yeah.
Dude.
So I'm ready to stop living with The Exorcist and start living with Trick or Treat.
Yay! Yeah, this a very, very different feel between these two movies. So enjoy, kind of being happier, I guess, maybe. Like I feel like Exorcist is kind of a downer.
And enjoy watching it again, friend.
Yeah. Yes.
Because of course, as our only rule, we do both have to watch the movie before we discuss it.
I will gladly. This is one I try and do. Well, you know what? Never mind. We'll save it for the podcast.
We'll save it for the podcast, pal. Well, everybody, if you're still listening to this long podcast, we love you.
We love you.
Thank you to those of you who said a granule of sugar.
That was amazing.
There was two of you, and you both got a selfie of me.
Yep.
Andrew still hasn't sent his selfie though.
No, I didn't send the one. You're right. But Edward wrote me, and I did actually send him one night. And but I do need to do the other one. Sorry, my apologies.
There you go. There you go. So thank you guys. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, everybody. We love you.
We love you.
We'll be here next week, Halloween Day, to keep you company with discussion of Trick or Treat.
Yes.
Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your October.
Yeah. Oh,
or if you're listening to this after Halloween, I hope you had a great October.
Right.
And of course, if you'd like to do us a favor, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a nice little review and or rating.
Yes, please.
Otherwise, this has been Andrew
and Scotty.
And thank you for joining our exorcism. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The power of Christ compels you. 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 The power of Christ compels you.